Finishing a game. Why you should set a deadline and stick to it no matter what, coming up. Hey guys, it's Travis Broman, and today I want to talk about why you should set a deadline for your first game and why you absolutely must stick to it no matter what. So, one thing that I see new developers do a lot is they'll say, I'm working on this project and it's going to come out sometime. I don't know when it's going to come out. It's going to come out sometime next year or 2 years or whatever. I don't really know when it's going to come out. And the problem with that is that is not a defined timeline. It can just keep changing and there's no fallout from it. There's nothing sort of to hold your feet to the fire to make you motivated to finish that project. And especially for trying to complete your first game, that could be a super dangerous thing. For me, it was pretty much the way that I worked for the first probably 8 years or so, independently developing games, is I was always starting new projects, and I was always just like, well, I'm working on this new awesome game, but I don't know when it's going to come out. I don't know when I'm going to finish it. I'm just doing it in my spare time. I don't really know what the timetable is. And that is really detrimental to actually finishing the game because you're not setting a scope for yourself to limit how long you've got. So you might be working on that game for 5 years and still never finish it because you'll keep adding things to it, or you'll keep changing what the game does, or you'll keep changing maybe the story or the mechanics, or you'll keep changing what technology you're using, or whatever it is. Whereas if you set a definitive release date for your game, that makes you somewhat accountable. And we've talked a little bit about accountability before, and being public with things, but it's important that you set a release date for your project and stick to it no matter what. Even if that means that you've got to cut features in order to make it happen. That's a normal thing in software development. Cutting features almost always happens. When a project is in its planning stage, it's very easy to say, well, we're going to make this a super rich product with all these different features, and it's going to be on all these different platforms, and it's going to have all these network features and social media features and this and that. And it's really easy to say that all those things are going to be put into place ahead of time. But when you say, hey, I've got, say, 3 months to develop a game, it really, from the beginning, makes you think, well, am I going to have time to implement all those extra features, all those social networking features, or all those bells and whistles that I wanted to add? No, probably not. Maybe I should scale that back a little bit. Maybe I should bring in the scope a little bit. And that's sort of the point, is setting a time frame, setting a due date when the thing is due to be completed, helps you keep in mind mentally, you have to finish this product. You're accountable for finishing this product. And if you don't keep your word, that is going to make your credibility suffer. And nobody wants their credibility to suffer. If you've told hundreds of people online that you're going to be releasing something, then, let's say you set a date of June 1st or something like that. Like, this game is going to be released June 1st, and it's February. You're going to be keeping in mind all the time from February through on to right up to release. Hey, I've got to release this June 1st. And especially when you get closer, maybe you're a month out, you're going to say, okay, I've only got a month left, and I still have to release this June 1st. What do I need to cut? What do I need to make sure that gets cut or or at least reduced in scope in order to make the deadline that I've set. You don't want to be pushing deadlines around because, as many of you have probably seen, there are certain studios that are known for pushing around deadlines and certain ones that are known for delivering on time. And generally speaking, the consensus with a lot of these large studios is, well, if they push it back a little bit, people are going to be disappointed, but it's because there'll be a more polished product. But to me, that reduces the credibility of when they say that something's going to come out. To me, when you say that something's going to be released on a certain date, I expect that it's going to be released on that date. I don't expect that halfway into that, or even almost all the way up to that release date, to hear, oh, this is being pushed back another month, or oh, this is being pushed back half a year. I don't think that is necessary, and I don't think it's necessarily ethical to do unless there's some sort of really major problem with it that's just going to make the product completely unusable. And that shouldn't really happen either, because it should go through extensive testing and external feedback to prevent that kind of stuff. And all those things should be worked into the timeline. So if you're scheduling out your time correctly in order to stick to that date, and you're trying to keep things within scope, then there should be no reason that you have to push a deadline back. And I know certainly at work, when I'm doing this at my full-time job, it's not acceptable to push things back. If we're pushing something back, that affects the bottom line. There's money involved in that. And when something gets pushed back, that affects a lot of things. There's a lot of knock-on effect. Maybe it affects products that are going to be released after that. And so if you're planning on making the jump into the professional development of games, or whether you're not, or doesn't matter either way, it's still a good practice to get into, is to always stick to your promised release date. If you do that, then by the time you get into one of those positions, maybe with a company, if that's what you're interested in doing, then you'll be in a lot better position because you'll be used to holding yourself accountable for those dates. So all this to come back to the point of, for your very first game that you're doing on your own, set a release date. And, when you're setting that release date, make sure that it's something that's attainable. Don't say for your very first game that you're going to get it done in a week. Obviously, that's rubbish. Nobody finishes a game in a week unless it's like a game jam or a very, very small game that's done as part of a development challenge or something like that. But it's usually not something that's going to wind up being a super polished product that you're going to want to advertise later on. Like, for example, the 24-hour game project that I did, I'm not necessarily completely happy with the way that came out, but even with that project, I only allowed myself 24 hours to do it, and when 24 hours was up, that's it. I released the product. And there are some issues with it, and I don't recommend doing that, only because I made some mistakes in that development process, which I'm going to talk about in another video. But the point is, I still released it when I said I was going to release it. Now, again, if there are game-breaking things that are happening, or major bugs or crashes or things that are happening, then yeah, push your game back. But don't make it a regular practice. You need to always develop your projects with a realistic timeline that you stick to. So I really don't have anything else to add to that at the moment. So if you guys have had issues with either sticking to a deadline, or maybe you've had successes with sticking to a deadline, or maybe you have success stories about how setting a deadline helped you actually release your first game, leave a comment below. I'd love to hear from you. And always feel free to shoot me a link to a game I'd love to check out and see what you guys are doing. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Please like this video and subscribe, and I will see you guys tomorrow.